Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Molly, I'm a mum here in the UK. I have two children, a biological 4-year-old daughter, and last year me and my husband brought home our son through UK adoption. Today's video is about preparing your child who is adopted for childcare. So I have no experience of school yet, but I definitely have quite a bit of experience of getting my little man ready for nursery. And I get a lot of questions about it, so I'm going to go through the steps that we took to settle him in and some of my top tips when you are looking for a nursery. So my adoption leave currently is still going, but my little man has been in nursery for probably the last 4 months. We decided to start him in nursery probably about 7 months post placement. And the reason we did this is we knew that he would need a really long settling in process, just purely to facilitate some of the attachment, make sure that we could limit the amount of separation anxiety that he experienced. And in doing so, it was really vital that we found a nursery that fully supported us and supported our son. A child who has experienced trauma, neglect or loss may very well have some difficulties with attachment. They may have a lot of separation anxiety when they leave foster carers, for example, and come to you, and equally they will then attach to you, and then when you have to go and leave them with a childminder or with a nursery, they may very well experience that separation anxiety again. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we managed this later on, but first I'm going to explain how we knew that my little man's nursery was the right setting for him. When you are looking for a nursery or a childminder, it's really important to have a look around at the different ones in your area. You may hear good things about one, but definitely research a few. My top tip is to ask for their behaviour policy. So every nursery or childcare setting should have a behaviour policy, and in that, as a parent to a child who is adopted, I was looking at how they managed behaviour or challenging behaviour. Some settings may have traffic light systems, some may focus on reward and discipline, some might use time out and, for example, naughty steps. And for me, that just didn't sit right with me. I knew that I needed a setting that undertook a curious approach, a therapeutic approach, really mirrored the therapeutic parenting we were doing at home. Once you've had a look through the behaviour policies, set up a meeting with the manager, have a show around, have a look around, and it gives you a really good opportunity to ask some questions. Even though my son was going to the same nursery that my daughter was going to and I knew it very, very well, I still went in with some questions just so that I could be reassured that the staff there were aware of attachment, they were sort of trauma informed, and that they could really help my son as much as possible. If you set up a meeting with a manager, have a really lengthy, detailed discussion about your children's needs and how they think that they can support them. Ask if they've previously supported, looked after children, how they've done this, how they've had relationships with the parents, and another really good tip is to ask how they've previously spent pupil premium. So pupil premium is a pot of government funded money that any child who is adopted is entitled to claim through their childcare setting. So the childminder or nursery should be able to claim this. And really what it should be used for is something to directly support that child. Ultimately, they can choose how to use it. And you can ask how it is being used, you can ask how it's intended to be spent, and you can suggest things as well. I'm sure that they will be open to suggestions. So it's really good to have an idea how they've previously spent it, whether it's on getting some specific equipment for a looked after child that will support their needs or their additional needs, or if they've spent it on some attachment training for staff. It's a really good indicator to show how they are probably going to support your little one in the future and that they are spending it on the right areas. It's really good to ask how attachment aware the staff is in general. I found a lot of settings were not attachment aware or even trauma informed at all, and that came as a really big shock to me. It just doesn't seem to be addressed or for there to be much awareness of it, but luckily my son's nursery were very much attachment aware. They had a very good continuous learning programme with their staff, so at staff meetings they were always having topics to learn about and discuss. Staff were going on different kinds of training, and so it was really reassuring for me to know that if my little man presented with any attachment behaviour, it was easy for the staff to recognise that it was an unmet need and not to meet this with punishment or discipline. Also ask about SEN. Do they have a SENCO? Do they have a dedicated member of staff who is there to support any children with special educational needs? If that is relevant to you, it might be worth having a chat with them, looking at their SEN policy or if they've got any procedures in place that are relevant, again just so you can understand how that setting works. The last kind of question that I would go in asking is how they can support your little one in settling in. For me, like I said, my little man really needed a lengthy settling in process, much longer than they would recommend for any child that, you know, typically comes into the nursery. And so when I suggested that we have a 3-4 month settling in process, they were very open to it. They were very supportive and they completely understood why. But be prepared for them not to understand why, and be prepared to explain how it will benefit you and your child. So once you've identified the nursery or the childminder that you would like your child to go to, it then gets into the settling in process. So here are my top tips for making sure that your little ones feel as safe as possible in their nursery or their childminder setting. My first tip is, as I've just mentioned, longer settling in periods. Every child is going to be different. My daughter had 2 settling in sessions and flew into nursery with no problems. My little man has a lot of separation anxiety and some attachment difficulties, and so I knew that it needed to be a longer process. For us specifically, we've built up his days right from an hour in nursery with me for a few weeks, building that up to half a day, to a full day, to 2 days, to 3 days, and we did this over a period of 4 months, a really long time. But as a result, my little man is so happy at nursery. He has a wonderful attachment to his key worker. He knows the staff. He runs through the gate. I have peace of mind knowing that he feels safe. Second tip is to focus on building a relationship with your child or children's key worker. Wherever they go, they should be assigned a person that is responsible for doing their observations, communicating with you, filling out their files. And so get to know this person. We were actually given some photos of this person with some information about them, and we treated it a bit like introductions. We stuck the picture up on the wall so my little man could see their face. We kept saying their name. We had conversations at handover, so I would have a conversation with the key worker before physically handing him over to the key worker, and vice versa when I picked him up. And that definitely really helped. Focus on building that attachment, and it will take time, and that's fine. And luckily for us, my little man's key worker was more than happy to persist with just building that relationship, just spending time with him, lots of time individually in the setting. So that's definitely something that you can suggest to the nursery or the childminders that might help your little one. My third tip is to focus on mimicking routine. If your child is adopted, you will know that routine is a godsend. Our children feel safest with boundaries and strict routine because it's what they know and they can predict things. So what I did was I wrote down the routine of my little man and gave it to nursery. We worked together to kind of figure out how his routine might look in the nursery. And if they said, we might struggle here because that's lunchtime, or you might struggle to nap here because there's lots of noise, I then tried to very, very gently change the routine at home to suit the routine in nursery. And this just means that his days are consistent. My fourth tip is to communicate often. I am forever texting the nursery phone if my little man's had a bad week, if there's any kind of parenting tweaks I've made that I found really work well at home, just to let his key worker know and the staff there know to see if they want to use it with him there. And it's just important to know how he's doing and know how your child's doing. So ask how they are at lunchtime, ask how they've napped, ask if there's anything that you can do at home to help them settle in better at nursery, ask if they've got any concerns or if they've got any ideas or suggestions of ways that you can maybe help them be more comfortable with their key worker or with nursery. These are professionals at the end of the day, and it's probably very likely they have looked after a looked after child or a post-lac child in the past. So it's really important that you're open to their suggestions as well. I hope those top tips have given you some peace of mind for you to try, and good luck with your nursery search. It can take some time, don't rush it, plan way ahead of time. I was planning nursery 4 months post-placement, so way ahead of time before I even thought about going back to work, but it's just meant that it's been a really relaxed and a very smooth process for us. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to comment them down below, or you can message me on Instagram at MollyMamaAdopt. I'm more than happy to share more of my experiences, and equally subscribe to my channel for more adoption related content. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye!